Hare Krishna. I am very grateful to be amongst all of you this evening, and I very sincerely thank you for coming to participate in our monthly Chaitanya festival. I was asked by Vishaka Priya Devi and Radharani Devi to speak on the subject of the power of sound. So, with your permission, I will try to speak a few words on this subject. Kishori Devi also enlightened me with this subject matter. According to Vedas, the origin of creation is sound. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adakavaye. Before even creation was manifested, the Lord created Brahma, and through sound vibration from within his own heart, he enlightened him, not only in transcendental knowledge, but in the whole process of how creation would take place. And this principle is consistent in the world great religion. In the Holy Bible of both the Jews and the Christians, in Genesis, the first chapter, it is said that in the beginning, God began the process of creation by speaking, "Let there be light." And thus the universe began. And in the Christian scripture, in the book of John, it begins, "In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God." Transcendental sound. Just as sound vibration has the power to create material existence, sound vibration also has the power to destroy material existence. The Vedanta Sutra says, in its very last verse or sutra, anavriti shabdat, that one could be liberated from all sufferings for the rest of eternity through transcendental sound. Now we'd like to analyze sound, beginning with what we can perceive with our senses today. The power of sound. You have heard that very high-pitched sounds can break glasses. In America, they call them wine glasses. Devotees maybe will say lassie glasses. High-pitched sound. Sonic boom could make walls crack. And there are many, many instances where a single gunshot can cause an entire avalanche, where mountains tumble down. Power of sound, as we see. Medical technology is learning more and more how to utilize sound for healing benefits. Through ultrasound, can cleanse wounds, can detect and diagnose tumors. Through sound, pulverize kidney stones. And sound has such a healing benefit to encourage the mind. The greatest suffering is the suffering of the mind. Rarely do people commit suicide because of physical pain. In most cases, it's because of depression and anxiety. What is the cause of that? Thoughts. What is a thought? Thought is a sound within the mind, is it not? When you're thinking, sometimes it's in words, and those words, those thoughts create pictures and images, and sometimes so powerful that sound, subtle sound within the mind can create depression, anxiety, or enlightenment, illumination, and great joy. It's the power of sound. And how, throughout the ages, people have been so affected in masses by the power of sound. Terrorists today, in the earlier part of the 19th century, Hitler, through sound, through his lectures, and through the literatures that were created, caused millions and millions of people to hate, to believe in something so passionately, they were willing to kill innocent people. I spoke the other day about, I was in Germany recently, and long ago there was the Crusades. How many of you have studied in history classes the Crusades? They were Christians who were trying to get Jerusalem from the Muslims. And they were fighting. And then the Muslims would try to get it from the Christians. They were fighting for generations and generations and generations. And they advertised to recruit more crusades that anyone who kills a non-believer, for every non-believer you kill, you'll get a better place in heaven. So some farmers in Germany, they were thinking, why not? Let's go to Jerusalem and kill them, because they don't believe. All sectarian ideas. They were marching, and on the way they said, well, here's a village of Jews. They're not believers in our religion. Let's just kill them. They're easy. They don't even have an army. They killed hundreds and thousands, wiped out entire villages. Such hatred. Why? Because they heard something. At the same time, we have seen God-conscious people, through the words they speak, they've transformed criminals into saints. They create love, awaken love within people's hearts. That is power of sound. Now sometimes we hear that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Like art, or television, or cinema. Yes? But why is a picture worth 1,000 words? That means it's so powerful. It's not that it's better than words, it means it invokes 1,000 words. It has the same effect as 1,000 words. It induces thought, induces sound, and how much it influences people's lives. Our Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, he writes that if you want to create a skyscraper, How do you do it? The beginning of the whole process is sound. All the materials are already there, but you learn how to combine them for the purpose of your construction. So yes, everything we do in life begins with sound. Material entanglement begins in sound, and spiritual liberation begins with sound. Srila Prabhupada writes that the origin of creation is sound vibration. When the sound vibration is clear and perfect, then perfect knowledge and perfect action is manifested. And we find this is the principle of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna was in illusion. He was despondent. He was just suffering. And by hearing the sound vibration from Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, the song of God, he was enlightened, liberated, and joyful. Spiritual sound comes from spiritual origin. Apurusha is a Sanskrit word which means sound vibration coming from someone who is not of this material existence, but who is transcendental. So knowledge of Scripture is considered perfect because it originates with the Word of God. Now, transcendental sound, vibration, or knowledge cannot actually be understood through the material intelligence or the mind. It must be inspired or initiated by one who is speaking those words without adulteration. That is why Krishna says in Gita, Evam parampara praptam, that this knowledge must be received in disciplic succession. There were hundreds and hundreds of Bhagavad Gitas in the English language, but practically no one transformed their lives by reading it, which is the whole purpose of it. Srila Prabhupada simply presented Bhagavad Gita as it is. As the great souls in disciplic succession have always understood it. And by that one translation, tens of millions have been read, and hundreds and thousands of people's lives have changed. Because they are receiving that sound from a perfect source. That is the power. It is said by Lord Chaitanya, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sajya Kabunoi Sravanadi Sudhi Chiti Koriyayudoi, which means perfect peace, perfect happiness, and perfect love for God is within every living being. It's not a question of being a Hindu or a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew or a Jain or a Parsi or an atheist. It's not a question of being of a high caste or a low caste or a man or a woman. These are all temporary designations. Our true self is that we're part of God. We're eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Our true nature is to love God. But because we have chosen sometime way back, which is intellectually untraceable to us, we have misused our independent free will to be apart from God. And therefore we have forgotten that love within ourselves. But it is our essence. It is our nature. This morning we were speaking about coal or oil. Since oil is such a big subject of today's world, we'll speak on the subject of oil. What is oil? It's nothing but the potency of the sun. There's trees, the sun shines on the trees. The wood is actually being created by the fire element of the sun. And when you light wood, doesn't appear like fire. But as soon as you light it, what happens? By associating with fire, the fire within it blazes. And when it falls to the ground and goes underground, millions of years pass, it becomes coal. And when that hundreds of thousands, millions of years pass, the coal becomes oil. So oil's a liquid, yes? But the potency of fire is within it. How to bring it out? You have to connect it with fire. When you connect it with fire, just like in your automobile, they have spark plugs. Yes? It just gives a spark. And that spark ignites the oil and causes explosions, like fire. That is nature. It's the nature of consciousness as well. Our consciousness is like that coal, or like that oil. The love is not manifested within us. But when we associate with those people who love God, that love is awakened. And it becomes like a blazing fire and burns to ashes all of our sufferings, all of our misconceptions, all of our avidya or ignorance. Now, when the Vedanta Sutra, which is the essence of all the Vedas, its conclusion, anavrati shabdat, that we are liberated through sound vibration. Why do holy people awaken that love within our heart? Because of what they speak. And because their lives are in harmony with what they speak. The pure word of truth. And what a powerful effect it has to awaken the essence within us. It is said in the Brihad Naradiya Purana, Harinama, Harinama, Harinam eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, nasteva, gatir anyata. In this age of Kali Yuga, there is no method better. In fact, there's no other way to awaken that dormant love within our heart, that spiritual consciousness, than the chanting of the sound vibration of God's name. Why is that? Golokera premadana harinam sankirtan. The sound of God's name has descended from the spiritual world. It is not a material vibration. Although we can say it with our tongue, we could hear it with our ears, it is a divine sound. And that sound has created this existence and can destroy all illusion. It can awaken the eternal truth within us. That is the power of sound. In the Kali Santillana Upanishad, it is said that, well, first we'll quote Lord Chaitanya, Nam Namakariba Nija Sarva Shaktis. What is so special about the name of God? It's non-different than God. And there are many names of God in all the great religions. Jehovah. In the Jewish scripture, when Moses saw the burning bush said, I am God. And he said, my name is I am what I am, something like that. So I am. It's the name of God in Hebrew. Allah. They have the 108 names of Allah. There's the 1,000 names of Vishnu, Vishnu Sahasranam. So many names of the Lord. And if we chant those holy names sincerely, under proper direction, that name liberates us from all anxieties and awakens the great treasure of spiritual love within our hearts. But the Kali Santillana Upanishad tells, because this scripture is specially like the prescription given by the Lord and the great sages for the disease people suffer in this age of Kali. There are many names of God, and all of them can purify your heart and perfect your life. But it goes on to explain the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram. Iti Sodashakam Nam Kali Kalmasha Nashanam, Nata Parataropaya, Sarva Vedeshu Drishyati. That in this age of Kali, there is no more effective and powerful means of awakening our original spiritual consciousness than chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It is said to include all other names of God. Therefore, it is not a sectarian idea. There is one God who is all attractive, Krishna, who is all pleasing to the heart, Rama, and his eternal consort, who is the source and bestower of all compassion and love, Hare or Radha or Lakshmi, Sita. So this chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is the most powerful spiritual sound in all of existence. And how it could liberate our hearts if we chant it with the proper motivation and with the proper consciousness. Can I tell a personal story in this regard? Just about, I think it was about 2 years ago. I was traveling in the United States of America. There's a community in Florida called New Ramanreti. It's in a place called Alachua, where there happen to be about 700 devotee families living in that area. It's a very large community. So I was there for about a week, and one of my dear godbrothers, his name is Pyari Mohan, he lives in Hartford, Connecticut. He's the temple president. For several years he was inviting me to come. And months before, we planned out that I would be there for the Sunday festival, where many, many people come. So he bought me a ticket. But it was a real cheap ticket. So I drove about 2 hours from the community to the Jacksonville airport, and I went through the security and all of that, and I got to the gate. It was one of those small aircrafts with maybe 30 seats or something like that, and we're all sitting there waiting. And then the lady at the desk, she announces there will be an indefinite delay in this flight. Now, everyone was quite miserable about that. But what's the worst thing when you're miserable? To have to deal with someone who's even more miserable. Well, there she was. This lady, she was probably in her 50s. She just stormed up to the desk and shouted. And everybody, we're just in a little waiting area. It's not a big place, just a little waiting area. And she's saying, "This flight must go on time. You must take me on time." She was screaming. And the airline hostess said, "I'm sorry, but, there's a delay." "Why is there a delay? I want to know, why is there a delay?" He said, "Because the air conditioning system is not working. They have to fix it." "Well, how long will it be delayed?" He said, "At least an hour." And she started crying and screaming in anger, this lady. She said, "You do not know how much suffering you are causing me. You'll never know how much suffering you're causing me. I demand you to take me immediately." She said, "There's nothing I can do." And everybody in the whole waiting room was just like, she was screaming and screaming and screaming for about 10 minutes. Finally, the airline hostess behind the desk, she just disappeared. She couldn't deal with it. It was too much. And everyone else was trying to move as far away as possible from that lady. So myself, I was just in the distant little corner, just chanting Maha Mantra and just hoping, I hope she doesn't come anywhere near me. So after the hostess ran away from her and everybody else was withdrawing, she just walked right up to me. There was so much anger and suffering in her eyes. And she yelled at me. She said, "Are you a monk?" I said, "Something like that." She said, "Then I want you to tell me, why is this happening to me? Why am I suffering so bad? Why is this flight late?" And everyone's looking at us. And I said, "Please sit down. Please sit here and let's discuss this." And I said, "Tell me, why are you so miserable?" And she told me her story. Would you like to hear her story? You're not supposed to like to hear about miserable people. But she told me her story. She said she's an upper middle class woman in her 50s. She said within the last few months, her husband and all her children were lost. Finished. And all her other families just abandoned her. Meanwhile, with the loss of her husband and children, without her knowing it, somebody legally went to the courts and cheated her. And she lost her house, all her property, everything was taken away. Now she was homeless. And hardly a month after this, she became terribly sick. She went to the doctor and was diagnosed with terminal cancer. They're saying there's no way to cure you. You'll probably die within a month. She said, "I'm going to die within a month. I have no property. I have no possessions. And my family's dead. Do you know how much I'm suffering?" And I was told in Mexico, there's a cancer clinic that told me that if I get there by tonight, they'll take me in and they'll treat me and they feel that they might be able to cure me. But they said if I don't get there by tonight, they're all booked up and there's a waiting list and I'll lose the opportunity and I won't be able to get in for at least 6 months to a year. I said, I have a plane and I have to Washington, D.C., where I was going to get a connecting flight to Connecticut. She said, I'm going to Washington, D.C. I have a connecting flight to San Diego, and I have just enough time to get there. If this flight is late, it means my life. Do you know how much I'm suffering? Why is God doing this to me? You're a monk. It's your duty to tell me, why is God doing this to me? I say, well, just calm down, please, please. Somehow or other, it's happened. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing I can do about it. What's happened has happened. You have no choice about what has happened. But you do have a choice of how you're going to respond to it. If you look at it as something negative, you're just going to suffer and make everyone around you suffer, just like you're doing today. But if you look for a positive opportunity in it, you're going to find hope. You're going to find meaning. You're going to come closer to God and find happiness in this situation. That is your choice. This is an opportunity. And I just repeated the words of Bhagavad Gita, how the soul is eternal. And due to our karmas, we're put in so many situations due to our past, but the decisions we make and how to respond is what's going to determine our future. So why not turn to God sincerely and thank God for the opportunity? You have to die today or tomorrow. A great life is not a life that's necessarily long. A great life is a life of quality. There are trees that are thousands of years old. Recently, I was in the sequoia forest of California. There were trees 3,000 years old we were looking at. But are those trees great souls? Lord Chaitanya lived 48 years. Shankaracharya, 32 years. Jesus, 31 years. And they're remembered forever because of the quality of their lives. I told her there's a book called Srimad Bhagavatam where Shukadev Goswami says, better one moment of full consciousness of God than a long, long life of forgetfulness. So why not turn to God? Sincerely. If you're not hungry, you can't really digest food. Now you're hungry, you're starving. Fill yourself with grace. She looked at me and said, what is the best way to turn to God? I said, God is none different than His name. Chant His name. And you're in the most perfect position to chant God's name and access God's mercy. You're more fortunate than everyone else here if you just make the right choice. I said, what name of God do you chant? She said, well, you tell me which name of God I should chant. So I said, should I write down what I chant? She said, please. And she opened her purse and she took out paper and pen, and I wrote, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I said, I have to make a phone call. Because meanwhile, they made another announcement that the plane was delayed another 2 hours. And I wanted to kind of get away from her and let her chant. So I spoke for maybe 45 minutes with her and wrote down the mantra, and I said, I have to make a phone call. So I tried to call because all these people are going to be waiting at the temple, and I have to catch a plane to Washington, D.C., and then I have to catch a connecting flight. I've already missed 3 connecting flights. So I had to call the president. But the payphones didn't work. So she looked at me and says, do you want to use my cell phone? I said, yes, please. So she gave me her cellular phone, and I called, and Vyari Mohan Prabhu was asked, where are you? You were supposed to arrive. I said, I'm still in Florida. And I told him, but I said, but there's a positive opportunity on all this. I said, yes, I'm waiting for so many hours, and yes, I don't know if I'll ever get there to your temple, but there's a really desperate person, and right now when I'm looking at her, she's chanting the Maha Mantra, really seriously. He says, oh, that's very good, so just call me whenever you're coming. He said, but there's going to be a lot of people waiting, don't disappoint us. So I think about 5 hours passed. And finally, they announce that if anyone wants to come on this airplane, please go to the bathroom and then board the airplane. And people were all really in anxiety. I said, what is this nonsense you're speaking, if anyone wants to get on this airplane? We've been sitting here for 5 hours, you people. What are you doing? Of course we want to get on the airplane. And what is this? Go to the bathroom before you get on the airplane. I said, because in the process of fixing the air conditioner, which is the reason for this delay, the technicians did something, so now the toilets don't work. And not only that, the lights don't work, but the air conditioner works. So it's a 2-hour flight. Go to the bathroom now. And then you can board. So everyone's running to the bathroom. This is the United States of America. This is not, the Kolhapur airport. So everyone's in the bathroom, and all the little kids, the mother saying, go, and the little child says, I don't have to go. He says, go anyway. I was seeing some of the inner secrets of family life. This one little boy, he was about 6 years old, he says, Mommy, I don't have to use it. I said, do it anyway. He says, no, I don't have to. You do it. I'm ordering you, do it. If you want to or not, do it, because you won't be able to do it later. So he was crying, and really, so everyone did it. And then we get on the airplane. And the airplane takes off. The toilet, there's a sign, toilet's out of order. And they locked it so nobody can go in. And there were no lights. And the amazing thing, the air conditioner didn't work either. All those hours. At the beginning, there was lights and there was toilet, but no air conditioner. 5 hours it took them to fix it. And in the end, there was no lights, no toilet, and no air conditioner either. And it was the summer in Florida. That's way down south. Really a hot day. And the plane takes off and everyone is really hot because you can't open windows in the airplane. And everyone's like, And then, some children are crying because they have to go to the toilet. And nobody could even read because it's pretty dark. So there's some light from the windows, but it was not so much. It was a miserable flight. It was about 2 hours. And finally, we arrive in Washington, D.C. And I stand up, and everyone in that plane was in so much anxiety. They all missed their connecting flights. They all missed their appointments. They're all business people, and they were all just burning hot, and they all had to go to the bathroom. And they were waiting so many hours. Everyone was frustrated, except one person. I looked back and saw that lady. The whole time on the flight, she had that paper with the Maha Mantra, and she was just, I look back, every now and then actually, I look back and I saw her, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare. And finally we stood up to leave. Everyone was just chastising the airline hostesses. She said, it's not my fault. And the pilot didn't even come out. He just kind of stayed there with his door locked until everyone left. So I was standing up and I just see her chanting. And she was smiling. She was beaming with smiles. And then she called out to me and said, can you write a blessing and sign your name where this Maha Mantra is? So I did, and she said, thank you. I'm going to keep this forever. As long as I live, I'm going to keep this. And then we're leaving the plane. We have to walk down, and she can't walk much. You know, they have to kind of put her on a, she could walk a little, but then they had her on a wheelchair waiting on the bottom of the plane. And everyone's just rushing, just anxiety, and she's just sitting there on the runway in this wheelchair with the mantra chanting. And she wouldn't leave until I came out. And she was smiling. And everyone in the airplane was looking at her like, what's going on with you? We never saw anybody so miserable than you a few hours ago. And now we've never seen anybody happier than you. People were amazed. And she said, thank you. She said, I have never felt so happy and peaceful and close to God in my entire life. She said, it doesn't matter if I live or die now. I have this mantra and I feel that I'm close to God. And I'm feeling the blessings of God more than I've ever felt. This mantra has transformed my life. And she was crying in joy, said, thank you, you have saved my life. So I wanted to stay with her, but there was one last flight going to Hartford, Connecticut. And it was supposed to leave in about 10 minutes. And it was in a different terminal. So I started running, and the people of this Washington, D.C. airport, they were very much surprised seeing us Swamiji running. And I ran really fast. I was tired too. And somehow or other I had to go to another terminal. And I got to the gate, and it was about 10 minutes after the flight was supposed to have left, but there were still some people going in. It was a little late. So I ran up to the desk and I said, can I get on this flight? They said, let me see your ticket. I showed the ticket. I said, your flight left 5 hours ago. I said, well, it's your airline's fault, not mine. I said, well, let me see. This flight is full, so you can't come. But you sit down and let us see. So then after everyone boarded, she came out and said, one person didn't show up, so you can get on. So I got on, but I couldn't call Pyari Mohan to tell him when I'm coming because I was running right after I got off that flight. By the way, the name of the airlines was United Express. But in my mind, I renamed it Disunited Distress. And I got on this flight, and I'm thinking, how am I going to reach him? And then there was a telephone right in front of my seat. And somebody next to me had a credit card, and I said, using their phone, because there was a telephone in front of everyone's seat. I said, can I use your credit card for a minute? He said, yes. So I call him, and I said, I'm just coming. So I arrive, and he's there with about 20 devotees waiting for me, and they rush me right to the temple, and it was just in time for the lecture. Exactly the time of the lecture in the evening. So what story you think I told them? The same story I just told you. It was fresh on my mind. The power of sound. The power of the name of God. How it, right before my eyes, I saw the total transformation of a lady who went from utter suffering and hopelessness to happiness and unlimited hope. After the lecture, somebody asked me, what was the lady's name? I said, her name was Dorothy. And then one man came up to me and said, do you know what Dorothy means? It's a Latin word. It means one who has received the blessings of God. The power of sound vibration. It can transform darkness to light. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya prayed, Chaito dara paramarjanam bhava mahadavagni nivapanam. That this holy name of Lord Krishna can cleanse the heart and awaken that divine love we're always searching for. And therefore it is the prime benediction for humanity at large. Thank you very much.